Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ed Castillon. I'm just going to give you kind of an update of what we're going to do today. Since we had technical difficulties last week, what we're going to try to do today is the first hour do the first DCO. So DCO number 2, we're going to try to do all in the first hour, and then try to do what was scheduled for the third DCO in the second hour, with a 15-minute break in between. Like I mentioned before, we have a conference line in case we have audio difficulties. The way that I structured the conference line is that you all are muted. You're defaulted in a mute setting. Please keep yourself muted. Ask questions through the chat like we have. Please let me know. I have mute on our side as well on the phone, just so we don't get an echo. But if we start running into problems with the sound, please let us know so we can unmute the phone. So with that, we're just going to get started. Somebody's saying that they don't have sound on the conference line. I'm hoping you could hear me through the DCO. If not, please let me know. We're gonna do today's second DCO just as if we would have done it last week. So if we could advance the slide. Welcome. We're going to recap the second DCO now, or the first DCO. Essentially, in the first DCO, we defined EEO. We identified the basic EEO statutes and regulations and policies. So essentially, just as a recap, we're talking the Equal Pay Act of 1963, Title 7, which covers prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in pay. We talked about Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. The Age Discrimination Employment Act, which prohibits discrimination of people over 40. The Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability. And the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008, which prohibits discrimination on genetic information. All of those statutes also have an anti-reprisal component to it that prohibits reprisal due to protected activity, and that's essentially what we covered. We also, then Virgil covered the 6 essential elements of a model EEO program. Well, let me back up. We also covered the regulatory guidance for the federal sector, and one very important piece of regulation that I would advise any EEO specialists to read is 29 Code of Federal Regulation, Section 1614. If you're going to be involved in any manner in reasonable accommodation or the disability program, you should also read 29 CFR 1630. We talked about some executive orders. We talked about management directives. Every EEO specialist in the Department of Navy must read at least once, preferably twice or 3 times or 4 times, Management Directive 715. If you are working in any manner in the complaints area, you must read Management Directive 110. The EEOC also has a number of enforcement guidances and case law that you should read depending on what kind of work you're doing. The Department of Navy has also issued a number of Civilian Human Resource Manual CHARM subchapters, and those are very important that you read those. We have an EEO program policy. We have an EEO program assessment CHARM. We have a barrier analysis CHARM. We have a CHARM on reasonable accommodation that also has a guide to processing reasonable accommodation requests. We have a No Fear Act CHARM, and we have a CHARM on the discrimination complaints process. and we also have a manual on processing reasonable accommodation requests. So that is essentially what we covered in regards to statutes, regulation, and policy. The first DCO, we also addressed the 6 essential elements to a model EEO program found in Management Directive 715. And the 6 essential elements are demonstrated commitment from agency leadership, integration of EEO into the agency's strategic mission, management and program accountability, proactive prevention of unlawful discrimination, efficiency and responsiveness in legal compliance. That was the first DCO, and today we're going to cover the second DCO, where we're going to talk about what is the mission of the DAWN EEO program, and we're going to describe the components that comprise the DAWN EEO program, and that'll be the first half of today's session. And then we will continue on to the third session, which will describe the roles and responsibilities of DAWN EEO practitioners, recognize the MD 715 program assessment requirements, and describe barrier analysis. So with that, I will go into the first slides in the second DCO, which is actually, I'll let Virgil, I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm going to let Virgil talk about the DAWN EEO program mission. Okay, I'm going to switch it over to Virgil now.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. I want to talk a little bit about the DAWN EEO program mission. And the reality of the DAWN EEO program mission is to ensure that we have an infrastructure that we have that is discrimination free in our work environment. And the reality of that is that we want to make sure that we have programs in place where we are constantly checking ourselves to ensure that we have an atmosphere of inclusion, that we have free and open competition for employment opportunities, and that we ensure that all persons are provided equal opportunities to participate in the full range of employment opportunities. And the way that we go about doing that is taking a look at all of our human resources policies and practices and procedures, the things that we have in our at the local command that dictate employment in its entirety from recruitment all the way to the time that a person leaves, regardless if they leave at retirement or if they leave because they found another position somewhere else. We make sure that all of our policies and our practices and procedures provide that atmosphere where people can reach their full potential, regardless of any of those protected classes that we talked about in the first DCO. And having said that, we want to talk about how we go about doing this. And the first piece of that, we want to talk about the affirmative employment program. And I am going to pass that to Ms. Judy Canaban, where she'll talk about the affirmative employment program.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Judy Canaban. I'm the Affirmative Employment Program Manager for Department of the Navy. Affirmative Employment Program is really ensuring what Virgil had mentioned before, ensuring that the entire cycle of our entire employment cycle, we are ensuring there's opportunities for everybody regardless of who they are, where they come from, which includes our recruitment, hiring and placement, our training development, promotion, internal selections, awards, and among other things. And what it is it's not sufficient that you will say that you have policies and practices, procedures in place, but you do have to keep on reviewing if it is being applied consistently. So having a policy and procedure doesn't mean anything if you are not also reviewing if there's consistent application across the board in the entire cycle. That's part of managing your EO program. When you do that, affirmative employment program has two different aspects, which is review of your program, if you have program in place, as well as review of your workforce, if there are certain groups within your workforce um, that is not enjoying, that is prevented from achieving their full potential. So the first part is review if you have the program in place, which is, do you have a policy in place? Is it consistently being applied? Do you have engagement and commitment from leadership by providing you the resources in order for you to be able to do your job and to execute your program? Do you have training in place? Do you have all those aspects that is, as an example, it listed in the 6 essential elements of the Model EO program. When you come to the workforce process, you need to review your workforce by doing your barrier analysis, which is trying to determine triggers as well as potential barriers and implementing action plans in order for you to eliminate if there are barriers in place.
Thank you, Judy. This is Ed Castellon again, and I'm just going to quickly talk about special emphasis programs. And in the Department of Navy, we have several special emphasis programs. These are the programs that are recognized throughout the federal community, which are People with Disabilities Program, the Hispanic Employment Program, the Federal Women's Program, the Black Employment Program, Asian Pacific Islander Program, and Native American Program. Now, the purpose of these programs are to analyze specific workforce needs and assist in eliminating barriers to equality of opportunity. These programs are not, the purpose is to help that those specific groups. It's not to necessarily have, for example, events where you have somebody come out and do a presentation. Those are things that can be components of your program, but the main issue of your program should be to help identify and help identify and address barriers that may be present in your workforce. So when we look at that, let me back up for a second. Last time when I brought up the term barrier analysis, somebody asked, what is that? So I just want to briefly, I think we're going to mention it later today, but I just want to briefly kind of cover some definition issues that are very important when I'm just referring to barrier analysis in general. A barrier is a policy, practice, or procedure that limits or tends to limit employment opportunities for members of a particular sex, race, or ethnic background or based on individual disability status. We do a barrier analysis, which is the process by which we go about and try to identify if there are any barriers, and if we do identify barriers, we then develop an implementation plan to eliminate that barrier. What we have here, I've asked Monique to put a slide up. I mentioned the slide in the first DCO, and I wanted to show it to you. This is older data in the 5-day course. We will have updated data showing end of FY12 information, but at this point I just wanted to show this data. So if you all look on your screens and you see the column or the area there that identifies white women. The yellow bar represents the Department of Navy population. What is the percentage of our population that is composed of white females? The red bar is the civilian labor force. So what is in the national labor force, what percentage are white females? You will notice that there is a gap between the Department of Navy population and the civilian labor force. Our job in EEO is not to move the yellow line or the yellow bar up to that red line. Our job is to understand why that gap exists. And what we do and how we do that is by conducting barrier analysis. Are there policies, practices, or procedures that are limiting or tend to limit employment opportunities for white females? The Federal Women's Program should be assisting the command in identifying those barriers. When we see a gap, we will say we have a low participation. That in and of itself is not a barrier, that is a trigger. And a trigger is just, hey, look, there's a red flag, there might be a potential barrier, go look into it. So our different programs have different areas. The Department of Navy has different areas that we're looking into and that we ask each command. So white females is one of the areas that we are looking into in terms of low participation. If you look at Hispanic males and Hispanic females, there's also a low participation there. As part of our program efforts, we've asked commands to look into employment of Hispanics. If you look at Asian males and females, you'll see that we have a robust participation of Asian males and females. However, when we look at Asian males and females in the high grades, they have a low participation. So one of our objectives has been to look at participation of males and Asian males and Asian females in the high grades. Something that's not identified in this particular chart, that's another area, is the Department of Navy, DOD. We have a goal of 2% participation of our population with people with targeted disabilities. Targeted disabilities tend to be some of the more severe disabilities. We're currently at 0.67. We have a goal of 2%. So that's an area that we've asked commands to look into of why do we have a low participation of people with targeted disabilities. Another area that we have been monitoring, if you look at the chart here, black females, we don't have a low participation. However, our participation rate of black females has been declining over the years, so it's a trend that we've noticed. So we've been monitoring that to see, are we heading in the wrong direction? What might be causing that? So I want to address some of those issues in the special emphasis area. And kind of give you an idea of some of the things that we're doing. But again, the purpose of special emphasis programs is to analyze workforce needs and help the command with their barrier analysis. Now, there is one special emphasis program that has a little bit more areas that are covered, and that's the disability program. We do barrier analysis, as I mentioned before, but there's also a recruitment and hiring component. We have an executive order out there that asks or has set a goal for the government to hire people with disabilities, and each major command is supposed to have a selective placement coordinator to assist people with disabilities in the hiring process. And, we in the Department of Navy and in EEO, we can't do everything ourselves. We have to cooperate. We have to collaborate with our HR colleagues. And, for example, in the Department of Navy, the selective placement coordinator is somebody who actually works with the OCHR recruitment and staffing division. So, that's an area of collaboration to help us get our work done as well. Data analysis is a very collaborative effort as well. Within the
And part of the EO program, the way you manage your EO program is the discrimination complaints program. We intentionally put it at the end because even this is a small part of your overall EO program. However, it is a very important part of the EO program because that's where reality is. That's where the money is coming from. When you get sanctions, when you get remedies for, or when there's a finding, so that's where it is, but that is part of how you should be managing your program. So discrimination complaints most of the time is reactive. However, you can also make it a proactive part of your program by ensuring you're doing your timely processing, ensuring that you are doing your trends. If there are some issues within the complaints program that you can use for training purposes, that you can use to improve the quality of your services, that you can use to improve on the efficiency of your services, and you will be held accountable and responsible for ensuring that you execute that program. There are a lot of regulations that we follow when we are processing discrimination complaints, and we have already covered some of it, most of it. Just to mention, the 29 CFR 1614 is very specific to the complaints program. We have the EOC Management Directive 110. We have also the Department of the Navy's Civilian Human Resource Management 1614.1, who will provide you specific guidance. 1614 from 29 CFR, EOC issued their own guidance, and the Department of the Navy also issued our specific requirements. That is on the 1614.1 charm, as well as the Discrimination Complaints Manual. So we have a lot more specific requirements after EOC Management 110. So we are requiring, when it comes to pre-complaint processing, we have a requirement, EOC has a requirement of 30 days and 90 days. And we have more specific requirements under 1614.1 and the Done Complaints Manual. Pre-complaint process, we will be talking more about the complaint process on the 5-day course, but pre-complaint is a requirement, which is the primary purpose is the resolution of the complaint. We don't, Department of the Navy's policy is not to say no to employees, applicant for employment who will come and allege that there is discrimination somewhere, and we have to process. We have a requirement that we have to do fact-finding, in the manner where we have to secure all the relevant documentation and to talk to people, management officials, and witnesses relevant to the claims that are being raised by the complainant or the person who came to your office. Real briefly, there's a time frame requirement that they have to come to the office. The complainant is 45 days. And we have a requirement that within 30 days, we have to complete the pre-complaint counseling. Counseling doesn't mean that you are for the complainant or you are for the agency. You are the keeper of the process. You're a neutral person, and you just try to discover what are the relevant information related to the claims raised. There is a tool that we use when it comes to pre-complaint and even throughout the complaint process, which is the alternative dispute resolution. As you know, we also use ADR on other functional area, not only in EO, but we also use it for employment in the employment relations area, and the other HR issues to resolve complaints. So that's a tool that we use. Most of the EO offices don't really manage ADR program. They are using it as a tool to complete or to resolve the issues raised during the pre-complaint and even at the formal process. Once the pre-complaint is completed or the complaint is given the right to go formal, the right to file a formal complaint, and there's also a time frame requirement, which is 15 days from the time they were given the right to file formal. So the processing for Department of the Navy is really specific that within 30 days of receiving the formal complaint, we have the EO office have to make a decision to whether to accept or dismiss the formal complaint. It's on procedural grounds. The office don't have any authority to look into the merit of the complaint. So there are some bases that we will be looking more into when we do our 5-day course, but it's all on procedural grounds. There's no authority at the activity level, command level, to make a decision whether discrimination happened or not. If the complaint is being accepted for further process, E-Office is responsible for requesting for investigation. Request of investigation or the investigation process for the Department of the Navy is being done by the Investigation Resolution Division. We have been granted some temporary flexibility because of the many investigation that we were having that are beyond the time frame. So we were given the authority, the commands were given authority to have a contract investigation and or do rehire a new to do the investigation. However, the responsibility on the part of the EO is to ensure that the process is moving timely, efficiently, quality investigation. That means all the claims that were raised by the complaints are being investigated. You provide a roadmap for the investigation by ensuring that you frame the claim properly and give the authority to the investigator on how the investigation is going to proceed. There will be a requirement for you to do sufficiency investigation at the end of the investigation to ensure that we meet our obligation as an agency, as a department, that we produce a report of an investigation that is complete, accurate, with all the facts relevant to the case that would allow another agency, another division to make a decision on the merits of the case. It's our office here who makes the decision whether there is a merit to the claim or there is discrimination, or it's the EOC as well at the
Okay, once again, this is Virgil, and I want to talk to you a little bit about program management. You just heard an explanation of what the affirmative employment program is, what special emphasis programs are, and how the discrimination complaints program works within the EEO program. You take all of these things all wrapped up into one, and then you begin to understand and talk about program management. And that's the setting of expectations for how all of these programs will work and what needs to be done within each of the programs. And it also is a key, well, actually the key to the Department of Navy's program is that all programs at every level is aligned to the Department of Navy's program. And in order to do so in program management, there's oversight not only at the Department of Navy level, but at the major command level and then at the operational level. And we're going to talk about those key roles and responsibilities here shortly. But the key thing to understand right now is that when you're looking at program management, you're looking at the responsibility to ensure that there are expectations set for the program and that the program is aligned underneath one Department of Navy program. And then, of course, we have that key aspect of assessing the program to ensure that the overall program is compliant, that we are constantly looking for and resolving, if we find them, barriers through barrier analysis, and that we're validating our programs through visits. And the way that we do our validations through visits is that two key aspects of it. One is from the Department of Navy level, that the program director at the Department of Navy goes out to major commands and based on the reporting requirements of the MD 715, review commands to ensure that the information that was reported in MD 715 is the reality for the command. And then also that same aspect should be happening at the major command level, where the command deputy EO officer has a role and responsibility to ensure that he or she validates the command's programs based on the MD 715 reports that are received at the operational level. And overall, that accounts for the program assessment. And then there's an accountability piece. And the accountability piece is not just simply personnel involved in the EEO program, but also managers and supervisors as well as the leadership within the organization. And through all of this aspect that we ensure that programs are accounted for through the accountability of people responsible for the programs, which are not just EEO people. And then finally, engagement, the communications and training, and this is a key aspect of program management as well, because we got to be able to communicate the expectations and key aspects of the program, not only up and down throughout the entire Don community, but also in a lateral way, so that everybody understands what programs are available from an EEO program perspective, but also who has responsibilities, what the expectations are, who's getting what done, and are those things getting done? And then, quite honestly, none of this could be done if we don't have the competencies to do that. And of course, we tackle that through training to ensure that we provide the necessary training so that people who have a role and responsibility know how to get the job done. So all in all, this is how we do program management. And I'm passing the microphone to Cassian.
Thanks, Virgil. Just to kind of just summarize a little bit, the Department of Navy EEO program must contain all of these various components with the overlay of program management. That's our expectation for the new offices that are established. In the past, discrimination complaints program has kind of gotten a lot of emphasis, but the affirmative employment programs, special emphasis programs, those are really the proactive components of the EEO program. Discrimination complaints occur when, for the most part, when we have not been doing some of our proactive work. And obviously program management is needed to manage and steer and align the EEO program at every level to the DON program. So now what we're going to do is we are going to move forward to the quiz. I don't know if we're calling it a quiz. We're calling it something. Not a test. A measure, somehow to measure your knowledge of EO, I guess. So like we did last time, if you click where it says here, answer the questions. When you finish, please answer yes to all the questions and indicate you completed the test on the link below. You will have, what we'll do is we will please complete please complete this portion, the quiz. Now, when you've completed that, go on a break, and we will reconvene at 1400. So please take the quiz. We're going to give you, about 10 minutes to take the quiz, then a 15-minute break. We'll come back and we'll finish. We'll start the third DCO. So please be back at 2, but please complete the quiz before you come back from the break, so we can look at how, analyze a little bit and determine what feedback we'll provide. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're gonna get started. In regards to the quiz, we'll go through the questions real quick. So and some of this arguably we went through very quickly today. Some of you might have not gotten the scores as high as you would have liked because we might have just said something in passing. But to kind of go over, question 1 was to provide the infrastructure to achieve a discrimination-free work environment is part of, and the correct answer is the EEO program mission. And then question 2 was what comprises the DAWN EEO program? And what we're going for in that question were the different components of the EEO program. So we're talking about program management, which kind of is the overlay over all of them, discrimination complaints program, special emphasis program, and the affirmative employment program. Question 3, completing validation visits can ensure all the programs are aligned and compliant. That is true. Part of the validation visits ensure programs are compliant with DAWN policy and aligned with the Department of Navy policy as stated in our various charms. The question 4, the purpose of special emphasis programs is to analyze specific workforce needs and have EOC eliminate the barriers. The correct answer for that was false. That was a true-false question. That's incorrect. It is one of the purposes is to analyze workforce needs. However, if there is a barrier that is identified, then it's the agency, so it's our obligation or the command's obligation to eliminate the barrier. Number 5, this program establishes guidelines in the general and specific policies for the processing of discrimination complaints in the DAWN, and that's the discrimination complaint program. Question 6, as a program manager, you should, the correct answer was have regular and ongoing communication at all levels. Depending on what level you find yourself will depend on who you're talking to. Make sure commands meet higher goals and objectives, Department of Navy, whether it be Department of Navy goals or your command goals. Train others to ensure compliance at all levels. Training is a part of the program that we all have to, that somewhere in the process we all kind of do. Train others to ensure you get the training you need to execute your roles and responsibilities, and examine employment policies and practices and procedures. Question 7, when trying to recruit for a special emphasis program, consider having a special recruitment and review the recruitment plan. The answer to that was correct. I really didn't go into that. So if you missed question 7, don't worry about it. Components of the EEO, of the People with Disabilities program, the correct answer was barrier analysis, emergency preparedness, recruitment, hiring, reasonable accommodations, and accessibilities. I mentioned that rather quickly, and we'll go into greater detail of those in the 5-day. Question 9, we really didn't talk about, so if you missed that question, don't worry about it too much. Possible employment barriers for females might include downsizing, internal hiring that favor veterans, hiring managers prefer former military was the correct answer. Question 10, I kind of mentioned that very, very briefly, and I it's kind of in passing, and it's being 508 compliant is technology that must be made accessible to those people with disabilities that include, the correct answer was computers, software, electronic office equipment. When I mentioned that, I was really just saying compliant with Section 508 of the Rehab Act, and it was to ensure compliance, ensure accessibility of information technologies and computers. So that is the answers to the quiz. We will now begin the third DCO session, where we will be covering the DAWN EO program's roles and responsibilities. So we already kind of covered the welcome. Since we just did 2, we're not going to do that. The course objectives in this one is to describe the roles and responsibilities of the DAWN EO practitioners at every level, recognize MD 715 program assessment requirements, and then we're going to describe the barrier analysis process. So if we'll just continue, the DAWN EO program structure and roles and responsibilities. This is a high-level view of the Department of Navy hierarchy. So, you have the Secretary of the Navy, and you have the under, and then you have the various echelon ones, I guess you could kind of say. Where you fall in that structure kind of depends on who you work for. If you look at most of you are going to fall under the Chief of Naval Operations, and then your echelon 2, your major command, and at the major command level you will have a command deputy EEO officer who is the deputy to the commanding officer of the major command, and the command deputy EEO officer is more of a strategic position. Under each echelon 2 command, you have field offices. At those commands, you'll have a deputy EEO officer, and that is the operational office. Now, if you're on the Marine Corps side, the Commandant of the Marine Corps is kind of set up a little bit differently. It's a smaller, Marine Corps is smaller than the Navy, so the Command Deputy EEO officer actually is the deputy to the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and the Echelon 2 commands at the Marine Corps kind of function as the equivalent to the field offices on the Navy side, and they each have a deputy EEO officer. Now, the office that we work in, the Department of Navy Office of EO and Diversity Management, we are not aligned with either the Navy or the Marine Corps. We are the Department of Navy office, and our director reports directly to the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Civilian Human Resources, who reports directly to Mr. Garcia, the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower Reserve Affairs. Technically, we are separate. We're not the same office as OCHR, but we're administratively aligned with them, but we report directly to Ms. Adams. And we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, now I'm just gonna very quickly give a high-level view of the various, some of the responsibilities of the different offices and positions within the Department of Navy EO program. The DAWN program office, which is this office, the Office of EO and Diversity Management. Our responsibilities is to speak as authoritative voice for the program. We develop the agency policy for the Department of Navy EEO program. We develop the policy here. We send it up the chain, either get signed by Ms. Adams or Mr. Garcia. We do issue some policy out of this office as well. We also ensure program compliance and alignment through oversight and validation. What we mean by that is every year each major command has to provide us with their MD 715 report. Based on that and other information, we develop scorecards for each major command in the Department of Navy and a scorecard for the Marine Corps. And we issue those directly to the commanding officer of each command on a yearly basis. On a 3-year cycle, we've been doing validation visits where the program director talks directly with the commanding officer for each of the major commands. We provide advice and guidance to the major commands and practitioners on all EEO matters. We participate in a collaborative effort with other HR programs. We work very closely with the OCHR and the various components of OCHR to ensure that the principles of equal employment opportunity are interwoven throughout HR policy. And we also work very closely with other HR programs in implementing our program, some of the programs as well, such as, for example, the disability program. The selected placement coordinator is in the staffing and recruitment area. I work closely with staffing a lot. work with employee labor relations when there's issues that come up there. So there's a lot of collaboration with other areas of HR. We develop agency-wide tools to promote efficiency and effectiveness, such as iComplaints, eVersity, and in the future we'll have a reasonable accommodation tracker. We serve as the DON representative to external agencies. We serve on working groups with DoD. We attend different DoD meetings. We also represent the Department of Navy at EEOC functions, things of that nature. The Command Deputy EEO Officer, who is the deputy to the commander of the Major Command or the Echelon 2, serves as the command representative to the DON EEO office. We have monthly meetings with them. Issues come up. You should discuss it with your Command Deputy EEO Officer first and raise it up to our attention. Executes program in compliance with the DON program. So they are executing their Major Command program. So if you're in a field activity, you'll probably get direction from them as well. Responsiveness to reporting requirements, data calls. We will often make data calls, request information from the major commands. They'll subsequently send it down to you. They will consolidate the information, and then we will consolidate and provide a Department of Navy response. They implement DON policy at the commands. They ensure the command programs are compliant and aligned. Again, through oversight and validation visits. I know several commands require their subordinate commands to provide MD-715 reports because every year each major command has to develop the MD-715 reports. They'll have various objectives for their major command, and they will also visit their field activities to ensure that their program is compliant not only with the Department of Navy program, but also the program being implemented at that major command to address command issues. They provide advice and guidance to their subordinate commands, and they participate in a collaborative effort with the command HR programs as well. The Deputy EEO Officer is the deputy to the commanding officer at either Echelon 3 or 4 command. They run the operational office. They manage the program. They provide operational support and services. So everything that we talked about, each of those components in regards to the affirmative employment program, special emphasis programs, discrimination complaints program, that work is done at the operational level. In an operational format, I mean, we do that. We do some of that at our level, but we're more of a policy area. The command deputy is more strategic. The deputy EEO officer is operational. You are processing the EEO complaints. You are conducting barrier analysis. You are conducting, your various activities related to your special emphasis program. Overlaid on that, you're managing your program in accordance to DON policy and your command policy. So again, you're ensuring that your program is compliant with DON and command policies. You'll provide advice and guidance to your customers, which in this situation, you might have several customers, and we'll get into that, or stakeholders involved in the process. Develop a collaborative relationship with everyone who has a stake in the EO program. We'll talk about stakeholders in a little bit. The next role that we cover are EO specialists. EO specialists ensure program compliance with DON, Major Command, and local policies. You provide advice and guidance to your customers. A lot of you who are coming into the EO program will be EO specialists in that you'll be 260s. Don't be, I guess, a little, you can't be one-dimensional. An EO specialist might do a lot of things. I would encourage you to get involved in a lot of different aspects of the EO program. You might work for an employment program. You might work in the special emphasis program. You might work in complaints. As part of a special emphasis program, you might be, a Hispanic employment program manager. You might be the disability program manager, where you really will have to, work with a lot of different people in implementing that program. The disability program is a little bit different. Like I've mentioned before, it's a little bigger. You're going to work in potentially reasonable accommodation issues, where you'll be working with people from obviously one of the bullets here, collaborative relationship with stakeholders, but that includes your colleagues in HR, could be legal, managers and supervisors, employees, IT, safety, all those kind of areas you're going to be touching, including training. And just as a kind of developmental kind of aspect, if you're an EEO specialist, like I said, do not become one-dimensional. Try to get a broad coverage, understanding all the areas of EEO, because if you want to, if you're going to be an EEO specialist and you want to become a deputy EEO officer, we here in this office, we sit on the panels for every deputy EEO officer. Somebody from our team will sit on the panel for every deputy EEO officer that's hired in the Department of Navy. And one of the things that we're looking at is, does this person have a well-balanced, well-rounded understanding of EEO program? And we're talking the total EEO program. So as an EEO specialist, try to get involved in all the various areas of the program. I'll now switch it over to Virgil to talk a little bit more in kind of a different, role about.
Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, what I'd like for you to do right now is take a moment and look at that handout where you have the roles and responsibilities and there's check marks. If you take a moment and just review those check marks, what we're doing on this end is we're bringing it up on the slide presentation for the DCO, and then we'll talk about it here in a couple of minutes. So if you bear with us, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you had an opportunity to review the roles and responsibilities on this particular slide in your handouts, uh, where what we're trying to show you, or so that you get an understanding, is from the program management perspective. And you see in that column that these are all the things that need to take place. And we kind of talked about that already. And then if you look at the column where it has the Department of Navy EO Program Office, and you see all those check marks, that's the roles and responsibilities for that particular office. And then you will see the same thing for the Command EO Office, which is strategic, where Don office is policy and guidance. And then you see field activities, which is operational, and all the check marks underneath that. I really want to focus more so on the field activities, the operational piece of it, than the other areas. Not that they're not important, because they really are important. But I really want to speak to you, the individual EEO specialist who's going to make that transition. And the majority of you will likely find yourselves in that column where it says field activities, which is operational. And as you see the check marks, you'll see that in those field, in the operational piece of the EEO program is where you're going to find that not only where the command deputy EEO officer is also going to set expectations, as well as the command deputy EEO officer and the program, the Don EEO program office, but as the EEO specialist, you have a responsibility for executing those expectations. And you'll see a check mark where it says program assessment. And of course, once again, you're at the field activity, at the operational piece, but you're assessing the program on an ongoing basis. And the reality is that should always be prepared for the major command to provide information to show from every aspect of the program that you have a compliant program, or that where there are issues or concerns, that there are plans in place to try to resolve the issues and concerns that have an impact on the program. And then, of course, you see a check mark in relationship to barrier analysis. Once again, you heard Ed Cantion talk a lot about that, but at the field activity, that's where that work takes place. That's where the EEO specialist, regardless of what part of the program you're involved in, that you may find yourself doing, which is barrier analysis. And then, of course, the accountability piece, the communications and training piece, which is all very important. And the reality at the field activity level is communicating what's happening with the program within your field, within the command that you work for, as well as to communicate what's happening in the program up the chain, so that the command EEO office at the major command level know what's happening. And as well as that information, as Ed explained it, that it gets fed up through a channel where it eventually lands here at the Don EEO office, where we put together reports and responses that communicate what's happening within the Don EEO program as a total program. And then once again at the field activity level, the training area is ensuring that you have the competencies to do your job. And the reality is that assurance should come from the leadership of your organization, from the commanding officers who, if you recall, we talked about the 6 essential elements of a model EEO program, and we talked about demonstrated commitment. And that in that particular area, the expectation is that the command will provide the necessary resources for you to have the necessary skills and competencies in order to execute the program and the objectives within the program. And be quite honest, if you look at it from this perspective, that's what we're doing right now. The Department of Navy, from a leadership perspective, has provided the resources necessary to take you down this journey. This is but the first step in that journey of acquiring those necessary skills so that you can effectively work at the operational level. And then, of course, as you heard Ed talk about, not just working at that operational level, but trying to gain a lot of experience in each area of the EEO program, so that one day you grow into that deputy EEO officer position. And then, of course, from that deputy EEO officer position, you grow into the command deputy EEO officer position. And then one day, one of you all will find yourselves being the director of the Department of Navy's EEO program. And every one of those levels are very possible if you have goals to try to reach that. And if you took a look at this particular slide, and it shows the roles and responsibilities, it's a little bit different, but it's trying to tell you the same story. if you look on the left-hand column and as it lays out, what it does is it lays out information on what happens within program management, customer advice and guidance, who does it, where's that role sits, where's that responsibility for doing that, who has the responsibility for briefing senior leaders, who's responsible for collaboration with stakeholders, and what happens with barrier analysis, and who has a role and responsibility for that, as well as compliance, complaint processing, and training. And if you look across the top of the table, you'll see the labels for the columns, and then your check marks. And what you should get from this is understanding that when you look at program management, you see that everybody has a role and responsibility in that particular area, except if you find yourself working as an EEO counselor. An EEO counselor's role and responsibility is to process informal complaints. Uh, uh, um, but a complaints manager, a special emphasis program manager, an affirmative employment program manager, and a diversity manager, you will find with the responsibility for ensuring program management. And I want to highlight diversity manager for you, that last column. And the reason why I want to highlight that for you is I want you to truly understand this so that you don't walk away from this training with a misperception of all of the elements and components of a model EEO program. The diversity program has a play and a role with the EEO program, but the diversity program is not the same as the EEO program. There are particular rules and policies and laws and things that you've heard already that dictate what happens within the EEO program. Those same elements do not exist in the diversity program. However, the diversity program certainly has its place, and it works side by side and in collaboration with the EEO program to achieve that workplace that is discrimination free and has that element of inclusion. If you take a look at customer advice and guidance, you'll see all the way across the board that everybody within the EEO program has a role to play in providing advice and guidance to customers. At some level of the program. And the same, I'm sorry, not the same thing, but if you look at briefing, who provides briefs to senior leaders? And once again, you can see it from a strategic perspective all the way down to the operational perspective. Strategically, deputy EEO officers and above provide that briefing and information to senior leaders. But then it happens also at the operational level, except with the exception of the EEO counselor. And you see the same thing all the way across the board, where there's a check mark all the way across for collaboration with stakeholders, all the way across with barrier analysis, because everybody has a role in that particular aspect of the program. And then if you look in compliance, of course, the deputy EEO officer will have a role and responsibility ensuring that there's a complete compliant program. But then you'll see that affirmative employment program manager, there's no check mark. And there's also no check mark. And there's also, I'm sorry for the that was a pause for effect to continue my the information. You'll see that there's also no check for the diversity manager in the area of compliance, and there's a reason for that. And and once again, the reasons are pretty, I guess, simplistic when you look at it from perspective of the laws that govern the program, who has that role and that responsibility, and special emphasis program managers, as you've heard Ed speak about, to ensure that the disability program, for example, is meeting all of those legal requirements such as 508 compliance with technology and et cetera. And then you take a look at complaints processing, and you'll see that there's only 3 checks in 3 columns. That would be a deputy EEO officer who has a role there, and you have a complaints manager and an EEO counsel who has a role there, ensuring the appropriate processing of EEO complaints and resolution of disputes. And then once again, you'll see training all the way across the board with the exception of an EEO counselor, who normally would not have a role in EEO training. But one of the most important things here also, when you look at this particular table, is that you as an EEO specialist may find yourself working in any one of these particular areas. And then once again, as I talked about before, you'll have an opportunity if you try to touch all of these areas that you can grow into a deputy EO officer position at some point in your career. This next slide, which hopefully you had an opportunity to take a hard look at, lays out more roles and responsibilities from that same perspective of, uh, of who sets expectations in the organization. And once again, from the DON program perspective, it happens from a policy and guidance perspective, and then you have your command deputy EO officers at the major command and deputy EO officers setting the expectations. And at the deputy EO officer position, not only setting those expectations, but have a role and responsibility for the execution of the program, because that's where the work is really happening, which is operational. And then you see the same thing for alignment, ensuring that, remembering that as we talked about the EO program, there's really one program. There's a Department of the Navy program. All other programs are subordinate to that program and all should be aligned towards that program, and all of your leadership in the EO program have that responsibility to ensure that alignment. Program assessment. Once again, it's all the leadership roles within the program to ensure that there's always a consistent ongoing assessment of the program, ensuring that all the goals and objectives of the program are being met. And then, of course, barrier analysis. Everybody has a role in barrier analysis. And you see 3 check marks in the command in the DON EO program office. And I would assume that you're asking yourself that that's pretty strange. I wonder why is there 3 check marks there? Well, I'm going to try my very best to answer that for you. I believe it's a typo. However, it is the same as all the rest, is that everybody has that role and responsibility. But from the DON perspective, we kind of set the stage and expectations for barrier analysis. And then we expect the command deputy EO officers at the major command level to cascade that role and that responsibility and what's expected for barrier analysis down to the operational level, because that's where the work is going to happen. And then in reverse order, once the work is completed, then that information is rolled back up the chain of command to command deputies who will compile all that information on the outcome of barrier analysis, and then will, of course, send a major command report up to the DON EO office for inclusion into the DON MD715 annual reporting requirement. And then also you see validation visits. You see a check mark all the way across the board because everybody has a role. From the operational perspective of an EEO specialist, ensuring that the work is being done, that when it's looked at, that it's compliant, to deputy EEO officers, ensuring that those expectations, those goals, and those objectives of the program are being met, to command deputies and the DON EEO program office, ensuring that what's reported up to the chain of command is accurate information about the program. And everybody has accountability and responsibility as you look at the program. And then once again, we talked a lot about communication and how important it is to communicate up and down the organization and from left to right and right to left, ensuring that everybody knows and understands what the program offers and what the roles and expectations and responsibilities are within the program. And then finally, once again, the training aspect, you see a check mark underneath each particular individual with a role and responsibility, that we all have a role and responsibility to ensure that we have the competencies necessary to execute the program. Now we want to take a moment and talk a little bit about our stakeholders' expectations. And we're going to look at it from 2 perspectives. From an EEO practitioner, what is it that we think that we should expect from stakeholders with responsibility for the EEO program? And then in vice versa, what should the stakeholder expect from the EEO practitioner? So if you look down the left column where it says stakeholders, we laid out in some specific terms who stakeholders could be. I would offer to you that this is not an exhaustive list. You may be able to think of some other stakeholder that we don't have listed there. And then you look at the next column, and that column is reflective of the stakeholder expectations of the EEO practitioners. Let's stop there for a moment and let's review some of this. So the stakeholder senior leader, what would the senior leader expect from the EEO practitioner? Timely advice and guidance. And therefore, we need to really have that experience and gain that experience where we feel very confident in understanding the EEO program and have the competence to execute the program. And once we've gained that confidence and that experience, we shouldn't have a difficult time of providing timely advice and guidance to senior leaders, regardless of what the issue is as it pertains to the EEO program. And the same thing with the status of the EEO program, providing that information and that timely information to senior leaders so that decisions can be made that have an impact on all of employment. Supervisors and managers, what would they expect from an EEO practitioner? Once again, same thing, timely advice and guidance so that decisions can be made. And for employees, what their expectations might be. Once again, the same thing. So you kind of see a theme here, a trend, that timely advice and guidance is a really key aspect of the work that we do in the EEO program. And then you take a look at what the union's expectations of the EEO practitioner. And once again, it's really important that as you hit the ground and you begin working in this field, that you begin to collaborate and start to understand all the other particular areas within your organization, because EEO will likely touch all of it, or should touch all of it. And having said that, what you can expect, what the unions would likely expect from you, the EEO practitioner, is to follow the contract as the contracts are laid out, follow the process in the contracts. And sometimes in some of the master labor agreements, it does have information in there about EEO complaints and the union's role in the EEO complaint process, if there's a role to be had, where an individual can work a discriminatory type issue through a union process versus filing an EEO complaint. There's also other things such as timely notification to the union. I'll give you a good example. One example is if a survey has been developed that's going to go out to all employees. It may be a necessity based on the master labor agreement that be negotiated, or at least giving the union an opportunity to review it before it goes out to employees that are covered by a master labor agreement. So understanding what union expectations are is pretty important. And the way to go about doing that is reading and understanding the master labor agreement that may be impacting the workforce where you'll be serving as an EEO practitioner. HR advisors, you see that same, as special emphasis groups, you see that same theme of providing timely advice and guidance, expectations from special emphasis groups and HR professionals. And I'd like to take a moment to talk a little bit about special emphasis groups. I think Mr. Ed Cassian may have mentioned this, but one of the things that you're going to find as you begin to work in this field is that a lot of times the EEO office tries to take on all of these roles and responsibilities in and of itself. I'll be quite honest with you that it just simply cannot be done. And one of the things that should be considered, and once again, that's through communication and briefing and ensuring that senior leaders know what's going on within the program, is that people within the commands should be participating on these special emphasis groups, so that the EEO office is not left holding every aspect of the program. Because once this is something that I think that is really important that we all should understand, is that the EEO program belongs to the command. It's not the EEO program personnel's program. They're there to perform a job, and they're the subject matter experts. But the program belongs to the command. And then, of course, you see counsel and IT personnel. You see business and financial personnel. What might they expect from the EEO practitioner? And you'll see a theme there where you see the word collaboration. It's really important that we have that willingness to collaborate with these particular people within the organization for a number of reasons. IT personnel are really important when we're trying to determine and figure out best ways to deliver EEO training to our commands. And IT personnel may have the answer for the best way to deliver it. It may be through computer-based training or some other particular style of training. Counsel, providing information and a legal review of certain things that happen within the command, such as writing EEO policy statements and processing EEO complaints. And then, of course, your business and financial personnel working with in collaboration to ensure that the resources are available to execute the program. and ensuring their expectation of the EEO practitioner is helping them understand the requirements of the EEO program. And then finally, looking at that last column, the EEO program practitioner expectations of stakeholders. What should we expect? We should expect that when we're dealing with senior leaders and we're talking about the program and executing the program, that we can visually and see demonstrated commitment from our leaders and having the resources or providing us the resources to execute the program. From supervisors and managers, we should expect participation in review of employment policies, practices, and procedures, and collaborating with the EEO office on specific events and issues that may have an impact on the command. We expect employees to assist with barrier analysis. We expect employees to abide by rules and policies that are laid out that are key issues involving the EEO program. And special emphasis programs. EEO practitioners should expect these groups to participate and collaborate, and especially participate and collaborate in barrier analysis efforts. HR professionals, we expect them to assist and collaborate in barrier analysis. We expect counsel to provide assistance with barrier analysis and collaborate with the EEO officers on those very things that we talked about, such as doing legal reviews and working together with the EEO office in trying to find solutions to problems and resolving disputes. Our expectation of IT personnel is to provide advice when requested. Uh, Along the lines of some of the things I already laid out about trying to determine best ways to deliver EEO training. In barrier analysis, we gather a lot of data. We work with a lot of data, and IT personnel can assist and help and collaborate in organizing that data in a way where it's meaningful, that we can do really good analysis. And then finally, our business people. What do EO practitioners expect from business and financial personnel? Assistance ensuring that we have the systems accessible for people with disabilities, ensuring that we have internal websites that are useful in providing information, and ensuring that we receive the assistance necessary in obtaining workforce data in order to do our analysis and help managers, supervisors, and senior leaders make decisions. And then finally, you see that whole line at the bottom that says other. Once again, this is not an exhaustive list. You probably can think of things that I don't have up there, but this is just to give you some idea of the roles and responsibilities of everyone within the command, because there is a role and responsibility in executing the program for everyone. What we'd like to do right now is allow you to take a 5-minute break, and we will ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and we want to finishing this up by talking about program assessment. And this comes from strictly from the MD 715, and I just want to really recap MD 715. Once again, that is the management directive established by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that tells us and lays out for us exactly what a model EEO program is. It gives us all the information on how to go about establishing a model EEO program. It breaks down for us how to go about conducting barrier analysis, and this particular management directive became effective in 2003. And that being the case, we've gone through a lot of growing to get to the point where we're at now. And I would say, looking at the Department of Navy as a whole and watching us go from what we were in 2002 prior to MD 715 to where we're at now, that we've jumped leaps and bounds, and I think that we're doing a fantastic job. And I do believe that with you all coming into the program, all we're going to do is elevate this further, where we have an assessment program that meets all of the requirements that is laid out in MD 715. Now, having said all that, let's take a look at what the requirements are. The ongoing program assessment, it lays out the beginning piece of it is the self-assessment itself, in which every activity measures its EEO program against those 6 essential elements that we talked about in the first DCO. Remembering that acronym, if it helps you, DIPER. And then also the self-assessment is conducted at least annually, but I will say to you that we do this on an ongoing basis. When you see the words that says self-assessment conducted at least annually, you're kind of talking about the reporting requirement. However, on an ongoing basis, we are constantly looking at our programs, constantly looking at policies and practices and procedures and HR policies and management and supervisory type policies to ensure that they are discrimination free. And then let's talk a little bit about barrier analysis. What is it? And I think our great disability program manager, Ed Cassian, kind of laid that out for you. It's the review of the command's activity efforts to identify and eliminate any barriers to equality of opportunity. And we're really going to get deep into this in the 5-day course because what our hope is that when you walk away from the 5-day course, you will know enough to at least get your feet wet in the barrier analysis process once you get to your command. And then, of course, from that point forward, the hope is that you learn more and more and you get better and better at this, which elevates the Department of Navy EEO program. And then annual MD 715 report to the EEOC. Once again, I've already kind of stated that it's a formal report that is culminated, culminates the ongoing assessments that are done throughout the year. The way that this happens, and I think Ed already mentioned that as well, is that it begins at the operational level where where strategically command deputy EEO officers lay out the expectations for barrier analysis efforts, and once it's done at the operational level, it's fed back up to command deputies who takes it and rolls all of that information up from the echelon 3s and 4 commands into an echelon 2 report, MD 715 report, which is essentially sent to the Department of Navy Office of EEO and Diversity Management, where we develop one Department of Navy report, which then goes to the EEOC. The annual MD 715 report has a checklist, which is a guide that helps us establish if we have compliant programs. And this checklist is in the form of what we would call is a Part G checklist, and we're going to talk about that more later. But the reality is the checklist helps us maintain and include documentation to support responses that we have. It involves relevant stakeholders, meaning those same people that we talked about expectations for us and what expectations we have for them. They should be involved in this process, and it's always ongoing. And what the checklist does is it requires us to measure ourselves against the 6 essential elements of a model EO program. And it's somewhere, I've never actually counted all the questions in that checklist, the Part G checklist, but I believe it's somewhere close to 80, maybe 80 plus questions that we respond to ensure that we have a compliant program as described by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and Management Directive 715. And then we develop EEO plans to eliminate identified deficiencies as it relates to the 6 essential elements. And we develop plans for unmet measures. We find out who we believe is responsible for those for executing those plans, and of course, we involve whomever that responsibility might lay on. We talk to managers, supervisors. We involve the stakeholders in this process so that there's no surprises. We document accomplishments in the form of reports, and we demonstrate progress through how we're making it through these plans, and we report that information. And I'm talking from an operational perspective, up through the chain of command. And then also we plan for the upcoming reports in the year that's coming ahead. And this is a question for us to talk about. I got to make a correction here. I want you to ignore the third bullet there that says mature employees. But what I would like for you to do right now is just read that question. What are the types of issues that Don has identified for each of the following? And then I want you to type in your answers in the chat room. And what I'd like for you to do is try to remember the conversation earlier in the DCO that you had with Ed Cassian, because he talked about he talked about issues that the Don has identified with women. He talked about some of the issues with the disabled employment within the Don. And where it says black men, that should say black women. So I want you to recall the conversation you had with Ed about black women. And then we're going to take about maybe 3 minutes Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about some of your responses. The majority of you, you're right on the money, right on the mark. Where Ed talked about the disability program and about meeting that hiring goal for people with disabilities, and you all caught that, the 2% goal. Ed talked about white women and some of the issues that the Department of Navy has identified, and of course, it starts with that low representation of white women in the Department of Navy's workforce, uh, participation rate in the Navy's workforce, participation in the Department of Navy's workforce, and I want to talk a little bit more about that area of white females because that also has an impact in some of the other areas where the Department of Navy has found some issues. We identified that there's some low participation rates for Hispanic males and females, for white females, and for individuals with targeted disabilities. But we also talked a little bit about the high grade situation as it pertains to Asian males and females, where we have a robust workforce of Asian males and females. However, there is a low participation rate when we compare them to people who are in the high grades within the Department of Navy. And the interesting thing or theme, I guess, or trends that we're finding is that not only does that high grade situation impact Asian males and females, but we also find that it impacts all the others, particular groups in the Department of Navy, with the exceptions of white males. The other interesting facts that we find that have an impact on white women, the disabled employment, and black females is that when we begin to look at our major occupations within the Department of Navy, and you're going to likely begin to see that as you begin to look at this from a barrier analysis perspective at your local commands at the operational level, is that there are some concerns where there are low participation rates in those major occupations, as well as at the high grade level within those major occupations. And that's where we've seen the downward trend as it pertains to black females, as it pertains to our major occupation specialties. There's a downward trend, and you heard Ed speak about keeping our eyes on that. I know that he doesn't like the word monitor because the word monitoring something for Edward Cassian Esquire means to just look at something and not do anything. But the reality is that we are looking at it, and we are doing something with it. And what we're doing with it is each time that we do a barrier analysis effort, we're still trying to determine if there's policies, practices, and procedures that are causing these anomalies or these triggers as Ed disclosed them to you. So kudos to you all because you pretty much captured it, which is a great, and that's another great step on this journey that you're going to take as you make this transition to the EEO program, is trying to determine why these anomalies exist. Not that we're trying to move the needle, but we're truly trying to understand why. And if we understand why, and then there's a need to change some sort of policy, practice, or procedure that would eliminate any barrier that we've identified, then of course the issue should take care of itself, and resolution in and of itself should happen on its own. Now we want to talk about some more information about barrier analysis, a little deeper, but once again we're going to get into grave detail in the 5-day course. I think this has already been defined for you, the question of what is barrier analysis. Barrier analysis is the process by which barriers to equal participation at all levels of the workforce are uncovered, examined, and removed. And essentially what that means is that, and I'm telling you, we're going to drive this home over and over and over again, is the process by which we analyze data and we analyze processes, policies, and procedures to try to determine if they present challenges, if they prevent barriers that impede the full participation of any particular group in the workforce. And barrier identification and elimination. How do we go about doing that? We do that through trend analysis. We do that through examination of employment practices, policies, and procedures. We do that through involving relevant stakeholders, because this is one of our realities, and this will surely be your reality as well. If you look at the employment cycle and everything that happens in employment, it is being touched by a supervisor or a manager. And then, of course, you have all those other stakeholders. But at the end of the day, who makes decisions that have an impact on employment? Who decides who gets hired? Who decides who may get fired? Who decides who gets disciplined? Who decides who gets to go to training? Who decides who gets a cash award versus a time off award? And if you can determine the answer to that question, then you determine one of the most relevant stakeholders that should be involved in everything that we do as it pertains to the EEO office. And then, of course, we do this through identifying triggers and determining a strategy for how we will go about our barrier analysis efforts. And then, of course, once we establish that strategy, then we begin to conduct what we define as in-depth barrier analysis, which is really trying to determine why the numbers are what they are. This next slide and then your handouts give you somewhat of a visual picture of the barrier analysis process, as I pretty much just explained it. Starting with identifying the possible barriers using a variety of sources. That's your first step. That's where we start to gather a whole bunch of data and information, and then we try to determine what the benchmarks are for analyzing and measuring that data against, so that we can begin to determine how we're going to go about and strategize what's the most important areas in which we need to conduct the barrier analysis. And then, of course, in the second step, we begin to investigate that information to pinpoint where a barrier may actually exist and what caused that barrier. And then the third step is if we found a barrier, analyzing all this information in these workforce processes, then we begin to develop plans to eliminate those barriers. And I can't say this enough, that you should never walk away from a discussion about barrier analysis in fear that you have a role and responsibility to do this on your own, because you don't. And the expectation is that as an EEO practitioner, as an EEO office, you're not doing this by yourself. It is so important. I just can't say it enough. It is absolutely important that the relevant stakeholders are involved in this process. At every step of this process, the relevant stakeholders should be involved. And the way that you go about doing that is establishing relationships, making sure that you're accessible, that you're out there, that managers and supervisors, employees, they know the people who are in the EEO office, that you're not some foreign object that no one's never seen, nor heard, nor touched. And if you're out there and you're establishing these relationships, that's your first step to getting the right stakeholders involved in all of these EEO processes, specifically in barrier analysis and identification and removal.
This is Ed. Thanks, Virgil. I was just going to do a small recap of kind of the whole session, but I just wanted to kind of address a comment that was made and kind of some questions that were given. It's the last one there by Mary that says, this was in response to the question, the low participation of black women, they seem to be declining. Her next question, I think, is very important. And what is the cause? And that's exactly what we want you to get to. And that's what the barrier analysis process is all about, is what is the cause? Why is there a decline in the participation rate of black females? Could there be a reason? Well, that's why we do barrier analysis, to figure out what is causing this, and then determine, whether or not there's a policy, practice, or procedure that we may, in some situations, maybe not this particular one, but in some situations there might be a barrier that's in place that may or may not need to be eliminated. In regards to hiring people with disabilities, we do have the 2% goal, and again, the question is why. One of the things that we major commands have found that there's attitudinal barriers. Supervisors essentially stated, why am I going to hire somebody with a disability when I could hire an able-bodied person? These, these folks can't do the jobs that we have because our workforce works on ships and submarines. So they're assuming that everybody with a disability has some kind of mobility issue. Um, so those are some of the things that we look at. That's kind of just one example of a barrier that we've identified. And then obviously right now we're in the process of trying to eliminate that barrier. Just as kind of a capstone, something just to talk about, I want to again kind of go back to some of the things that we covered in the first training session, which is the policy. What is the government's policy on equality of opportunity? Well, it's very simply to provide equal opportunity employment to all persons, and it's to prohibit discrimination, and it's to promote the full realization of the Equal Employment Opportunity Program and ensure we have a continued affirmative employment program. And it's important that we talk about an affirmative employment program, because really in the EEO area, we are about equality of opportunity. That's what we're doing. It's not about proportional representation. If you remember in the first DCO, I read a quote out of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and essentially the whole point of that quote was that the act itself says our goal is not, and we're not required under Title VII to have proportional representation compared to the civilian labor force. That's not our job. It's to ensure equality of opportunity. And we'll cover this in the 5-day, and I'll bring out some quotes out of some Supreme Court decisions. One that's very important that kind of set out the guidelines for what is the purpose of Title VII, what's the purpose of the EEO. And the Supreme Court in Griggs versus Duke Tower, it's a Supreme Court case from 1971. It's a very important employment law case in the area of Title VII. And essentially, the Supreme Court said the intent and the purpose of Title VII, or Congress's purpose in Title VII, was to ensure equality opportunity and to remove barriers. So even back in 1971, we were talking about removing barriers, equality of opportunity. It's not about proportional representation. It's not about moving the needle. It's about doing your barrier analysis and figuring out what is causing, like Mary said, what's the cause of this? What are the reasons behind this? And that's kind of our job. And I just kind of wanted to give you a capstone of that, give you an understanding. Make sure you understand that EEO is about equality of opportunity and removing barriers and understanding why there might be a low participation rate, but our job isn't necessarily to move the needle, or it's not proportional representation. It's understanding why and removing barriers. So that I just wanted to kind of give you an understanding of that. We're not talking about affirmative action. There's only one statute that we cover that would entail affirmative action, that actually allows us to do affirmative action, and that's the Rehabilitation Act for people with disabilities. So because the Rehab Act allows us to have an affirmative action program, we could set numeric goals. However, for Title VII, the ADA, Title VII, the Age Discrimination Employment Act, GINA, all those other statutes, we have affirmative employment programs, not affirmative action programs. So there we cannot set numeric goals. And again, we've been trying to do. We've been under the guidance of MD 715 since 2003. We've been doing it for a little bit. We've been doing it for a while. Again, and it's just an issue of keep moving our knowledge and processing, doing this process of barrier analysis to remove barriers to employment opportunities. So with that, we will switch over, and you will take the next. I think we're going to do the next kind of quiz. So if you guys can, Monique put a website up there. If you click on there, take it. I'll cover the answers. If there's something that we didn't cover, we'll address that. Please do your best on that. And when we come back, we'll discuss the course. So let's take about let's say 7 minutes to do that. There's only 10 questions, and then we'll come Okay, everyone, we're just gonna. If you're still working on the quiz, please continue. Um, we'll just I'll just recap the answers. Um, the first one: these people share responsibility for the successful implementation of the EO program. The answer was everybody. So if you selected some people and didn't select other people, then you got it wrong. But it's everybody. Um, let's see. What is one way to demonstrate commitment from the agency leadership to EO principles? The EO policy statement, allocation of sufficient resources to ensure all employees are informed. That was one of the things that we covered the first day. The EOC MD 715 provides new guidance on the elements of legally compliant Title VII and Civil Liberties Act. Two reasons why that one's false. One, it's not that new. It's 10 years old. And it's guidance on the elements of legal compliance to Title VII and the Rehabilitation Act, Section 501 of the Rehabilitation Act. A barrier is when an agency policy, principle, or practice that limits or tends to limit employment opportunities that is correct. Numeric goals are legal for, and essentially it's people with disabilities, persons with disabilities. After eliminating a barrier, what is the next step in the process? And essentially, the correct answer was check to see if it made a difference, and essentially you're evaluating whether or not your elimination plan was effective. Number 7, an EO self-assessment checklist determines the correct answer is whether the EO program is established and compliant with the 6 essential elements. And number 8, the HR director and the EO director should meet regularly to assess. The answers were personnel programs, policies, and procedures to determine if the department is in conformity with the EOC's management directives. Number 9, ADR should never be used when employment situations reach a loggerhead. The answer is false. And number 10, this can be used as an effective tool for the department in enhancing opportunities to achieve and maintain effective affirmative programs of equal employment opportunity. And the correct answer was new beginnings. So now we'll just go back to the presentation. And just as a summary for this one, I kind of did this before. We described the roles and responsibilities of the non-EO practitioner, identified the MD 715 program assessment requirements, and we described the barrier analysis. Are there any questions? If you have any questions, please ask your questions in the chat. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to see if anybody had any questions. This question is and you asked a question: is the CyberFeds training available in a slide format? I'm not sure what you're referring to. We didn't do any CyberFeds training, or we didn't have any CyberFeds slides on this. For those of you who aren't aware, CyberFeds is a service, online service, where we could pull out EEOC case law, and they provide articles and things of that nature. We will discuss CyberFeds in the 5-day as a tool in the complaint process and also in the reasonable accommodation process. But we didn't cover it here. Your next question, referring to the other required training for the fast track training. The only required training prior to the 5-day is this training. The people either had to attend the DCO or in person for the 5-day. There is, at one point there was some web training that is not a requirement. Patty, originally there was a training. I don't believe it was CyberFeds. It was somebody else that was online training, but it's not required. The next question, who do you contact to ensure I'm on the roster to attend the 5-day training? The 5-day training is being the roster and where your DCPP1 had to submit you within the specified time frame for registration, which is closed. And so I don't know. We'll have to get back to you on your question on whether or not you. I could look up to see whether or not you are registered. So if you just send me an email directly, I'll let you know. How important are the quiz grades? They mean very little. We're not failing anybody. We're just trying to assess whether or not you captured some of the material. What's my email address? My email address is edward.castellon, CASTELLON @navy.mil. It's going to appear on the chat here in a second. Okay, let's take. We're running short on time, but give me just. Okay, folks. What we're going to do is give me just 1 second here. We're having some technical difficulties. Actually, we just wanted to, just a quick poll. If you could, I'll get to this last question here, but just we wanted to kind of ask you a question. After completing this course, has your understanding of EO changed? And if so, how has it changed? So if you could just type that in, that would be great, and we'll just have a short discussion, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you very much, everybody. A lot of your comments are what we were kind of hoping for, to give everybody just a little bit better understanding of what the EO program is. It does encompass a lot of different areas. I'm glad that you guys picked up on that. That was one of the things that we really wanted to talk to. I think a lot of times complaints kind of dominate the EEO program, but really there are a lot of other areas other programs, other areas that we should be addressing, and the more proactive areas Um, and just remember that in a lot of what we do, like Virgil said, a lot of what we do in collaboration with other areas of the organization. Our responsibility is to ensure that equal employment opportunity is afforded to all employees, not necessarily performing every single aspect of the EO program by ourselves, just ensuring, making sure that it does get done. So thank you very much, and I'm very happy that you learned a little bit more about the program, and I can assure you in the 5-day course, you will have a better understanding of the EEO program. We will get into the weeds, into some of the areas, but it will, I think, give you a better perspective of what we do and how we're supposed to do that. Now, please do not log off yet. There was a question regarding the certificates and things of that nature. So in order to get a certificate and get credit for completing the class, one, you have to fill out the attendance roster to get credit, which is this website, the www.surveymonkey.com. You need to do that, and we are also like you to to complete the evaluation. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna if you could go in right now and do the attendance, do the Survey Monkey. I think the website was there. We're gonna give you the website for the evaluation. If you could please fill out the evaluation, that would be great. There's the attendance, and we'll be putting up the evaluation up there momentarily. There's the course evaluation. Please complete those before you log off. And one question we're going to do. Okay. Yeah, we will be providing the certificates. If you go just one. On your screen, you'll see something that says Files 4, and the first one up there is the DCO certificate. So if you open that, you can fill in your name and print out your certificate, and then the slides are up there for the presentations, all 3 of them, so you could download those as well. So please complete the attendance, the evaluation form, download your file, the certificates, download your the files that you would like to download. And with that, thank you all very much for participating on this. If you have any questions regarding this training or have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or send an email to Judy Canavan or Virgil White. And we will see you at the 5-day fast track training, which I could guarantee you will learn something. It's going to be 5 days. We're going to do a lot of exercises. There's going to be a lot of information, and we will keep it very. We'll try to make it as fun as possible. So thank you very much, and we'll hope to see you in a few weeks. Y'all have a good day.